Welcome, everyone. I am Enrique Acosta Gonzales, and I'm joined by Ashkan Tashvir. And in this episode, we will be speaking about the illusion of leadership, power, perception, and the true qualities of a leader. Ashkan, this is a topic that I really love to discuss because there are a lot of illusions out there, and many people do get tricked by smoking mirrors, let's say, of leadership. So I can't wait to get into this conversation.
Hello, Enrique, and hello, everyone. Thank you for being with us one more time. And this topic, as you said, it's quite interesting, and I have um, it's very close to heart, especially in the context of whatever is going on these days. Um, okay, so let's create the context as usual. So obviously, like in this series, we've been talking about leadership a lot, and um, so I thought that maybe we recreate the conversation around leadership, and then we can talk about um, the qualities that makes us being a leader, not acting just as a leader. And then we can look into the ramifications of um, us not being able to read through and um, follow or elect the leaders that they can actually lead us to worse situation, not a better one. So, so when we talk about leadership, um, like when we talk about leadership, leadership is not the same thing for everyone. So there are various different perceptions of the leadership, and and it's not a matter of which one is right or which one is wrong, because like when it comes to ideas such as leadership, we don't have a clear benchmark. Like it's not an exact science. We can't go, okay, so this is the laws of gravity. When it comes to abstract ideas such as leadership, um, then um, we need to understand that through dialectic and discussion and looking into the phenomenological patterns, um, historically, how leadership has been seen, and what are the most modern or recent interpretations of leadership. Yeah? So we can simply say the traditional perception of leadership has been leader is the one who knows better than all of us. So there was an element of wisdom, of a person who can be forward thinker, a person who can see through things and can see better than others, better vision, a more accurate discernment to tell the difference between these path and another path, being quite experienced in coming up with the strategies that it can, help us survive and grow. Um, so you can see that even in animal kingdom, for example, like if you look into the model of leadership of geese, the way that geese flies like we, and so the leader, the most experienced one, the wisest one, the one who can basically support the whole flock, going from one continent to another, knows the way, would be the front, and then all the way like the least senior ones, the junior um, geese are going to be at the very back, which basically scientifically there's so we can talk about it a lot, like the aerodynamic that is going to be created. They're going to preserve energy, the ones that are at the back, um, in such a way that like not a single bird of that species can travel, really can fly from one continent to another. So it's basically by them being together and then cause that aerodynamic condition, then they can fly and they can go, particularly through that leadership that is going to be provided. Similarly, you see this in many other species. So it's so primal, not only to human beings, but also in pack animals, like, for example, wolves or gorillas. So so that's one way of looking at leadership traditionally. But in today's leadership, I mean today's perception, dominant perception of leadership is a leader is a servant. A leader is um, coming from the um, so it's like from the aggregation of our understanding or our perception of leader, it's going to be a representative of us. So whatever flaw, whatever shadow, whatever weakness that we see in ourselves, therefore is going to reflect on the leader that is going to be elected. And that's a very interesting thing because we are not only electing leaders or selecting leaders based on their qualities or based on their capabilities and metric. We choose them based on the perceived qualities, and that's a very very important distinction. It's like the leader, we don't have access to understanding the leader objectively. We don't. At the end of the day, it's us as the voters. For example, in a political setting and in organizations, is sort of the same. So it's like how I perceive the leader, how I feel about the leader. Yeah. For example, like if you look into democracy, um, it's not like we say that this person is more intelligent, therefore, like this person should have like 3 votes. And this person has more knowledge in politics and understanding of the history in politics, therefore, this person needs to have like 5 votes. And then like you're not very intelligent and you don't know much about politics, therefore, you're not going to even vote. So it's not going to be like that. It's everyone has 1 vote, no matter how knowledgeable you are or how intelligent you are, how gullible you are, and how easily you're going to be coerced or manipulated. Everyone has 1 vote, and therefore our quality, our being, and the way that we see things, we um, perceive things, is going to have a massive impact, collectively. So therefore, it's not only about the qualities in leaders, like what qualities we're seeking in them, but also is like what is my perception of those qualities that at the end of the day is going to lead me electing that leader or follow that leader. Now, in a political sense, we say voting, giving vote, or electing a leader. But in organizations, it's like you're still like having an informal vote when you just choose to follow this leader. Yeah. So now, so that's one thing. Another one is when we choose a leader based on that perceived qualities, um, we are also letting that leader to be the manifestation or the demonstration of my own weaknesses. And that's a very interesting one. So, for example, if I don't have a very healthy relationship with responsibility, if I don't have a very healthy relationship with proactivity, I'm a reactive person, or I'm dealing with lots of inactivity. If enough of us in a democratic setting, we are that, our being is like that. We're not polishing that aspect. Therefore, we're not going to value proactivity or responsibility or accountability because we don't have a solid perception of that. We don't seek it in ourselves, let alone if we seek it in the leader. So, ironically, we may want to think that we have this ideal of a person and we want that ideal be the leader. In part, that's true. But on the other side, we project our weaknesses and our shadows and our flaws onto the leader that we finally end up electing. Yeah. And that's a very, very interesting thing to me. I've been paying attention a lot to it. How does this land to you, Enrique? How do you reconcile these two? One is like we have these ideals or the ideal qualities that we want to seek in a leader that we don't possess, but we have some sense of or we have fantasy of. On the other side, then due to lack of perception or misperceptions or misconceptions that we have of certain qualities, then we're going to project that in the person that basically on the person that we're going to elect at the end of the day.
Yeah, and that's very important for people to understand that it is going on. So now I'd like to just go back, not to the beginning, but just to uh, describe how I view leader, right?
Yeah,
Leader is a person that has the ability to influence another person to do a thing, right? So
yeah,
if you are in a position where you can influence someone to do a thing, you are in a position to be a leader. Now, will you execute that? That's all on you, and whether you will or not. But just the fact that you have that ability to influence. Now, when we're talking about how we look at a leader and how what we expect of a leader, because we were talking earlier of how I see a particular person because of these specific values that they have or don't, that I kind of would put my hat on because that person doesn't meet those values, then I would be less inclined to vote in their favor. In the same interim, you have a political scene that's divided by parties, right? So there are different candidates for different parties. And so everybody has a little piece that may favor what you like. And so how do you say, okay, this is where I put my chips, right? But it's very important to also consider the fact that we don't know everything, right? There was a report today, as we're talking about the political scene. The president of the United States and the vice president of the United States was on the news because they had reported from the White House that they went and reached out to the governor of Florida. Now, I happen to live in Florida, and I am about to experience 2 days of a category 3 and 4 hurricane. And apparently, by the news, he did not answer their phone call. Now, here we are. The state is in a big emergency. We're about to get really devastated. This is going to be newsworthy kind of devastation. And the report is that he did not answer their call. Well, this is it seems to me like a party feud, right?
yeah,
Hey, I'm good. I don't need you. Well, I'll tell you that you need everything you can as a meteorologist. It's a regular thunderstorm, and you can really need some help. So now
yeah,
let's bring it back to the scene. Obviously, I have training as meteorologist. Obviously, I have experience as working at the Joint Typhoon Warning Center in the Pacific, and I know how bad this can be. So now, did the news tell it all? Probably not. Did the president or vice president tell it all? Probably not. Did the governor of Florida tell it all? Probably not. And so now I'm at a point where who do I trust as the leader, as the true leader that could actually reflect the values that I would think a leader should have in this current situation?
yeah,
Here I go. I'm putting my ideals on these
yeah,
leaders now, and they may not possess it. And so it's a very delicate balance or dance between how you are really seeing these leaders and the value that they actually do have, as opposed as to the values that you possess and now are trying to put on them. And so it is a very tricky thing, and that's, the title of the show, Illusion, right?
yes, yes,
Illusion of leadership.
yes. Yeah. Thank you, thank you. That was a really good example. What I'm trying to convey in this episode is like, as you said, like we're calling it illusion of leadership. So there's an illusion on the people, like the when. So what is my illusion? What is my idea, or basically what is my fantasy of how a leader should be? And so that's one thing. But then also there's some lack. So there's the ideal that I have in my mind, the perceived values that I think that the leader should possess. At the same time, then the lack in my understanding, in my how I shape my ideal, that then I want to project it to the leader, there's a lack. And that lack is going to manifest itself in the leader that is going to be elected or selected. So so often, for example, we talk about the tyrants in the world, in the history, and we think that, oh, the problem was that individual tyrant, and it's a common narrative. Like, for example, we say Hitler. Hitler was like this individual was like a tyrant, etc., etc. The thing is, that leader comes up and and convey a narrative. Now, then millions of people are going to roar, or the followers are going to roar when they are resonating with that message, and that gives it power. And that's a very interesting, I mean, a very important thing. Because see, it's not this these individuals that are causing big problems. And for example, if you remove that individual, then everything is going to settle. It's not like that. And we deal with this now in today's world with terrorism. We deal with it like with even domestic leaders causing lots of problems, etc., etc. It's when you're dealing with an ideology, that ideology is depicting a picture of what leadership should be, how the world should be. And and in order for you to deal with that, then we need to actually look into ourselves and then see, okay, what are the lacks here that it's manifesting itself out in that those kind of leadership, those kind of decisions being made, those kind of policies being made, and then ultimately leading to manifesting itself into um, realities. Yeah. So this is exactly what I'm trying to convey, that our understanding of leadership, how we perceive it, the way that we are seeing that ideal, and also the lack in our understanding of leadership, ultimately, particularly in the democratic setting, is going to lead certain people being put in positions of power and positions of this decision making. And ultimately, those decisions that are going to make, they're going to make, ironically, sometimes is going to oppress us, is going to get in our way, or it's going to flourish at some, I mean, in some cases. So that's the thing that I wanted to bring our attention to. That if we are naive in our perception of leadership, if we are naive in um, being coerced or being manipulated, letting forces out there manufacturing consent, then we are in trouble. So, long story short, the idea is like I need to focus on my own integrity and in my own awareness, intentional consciousness, shaping my congruent, authentic, credible conception of ideas such as leadership, because that then is going to influence my decision and my choices as an individual, and then collectively, if you apply that to everyone in a democratic setting, then it's going to lead to certain people going up there and then making decisions. So there's this constant dialogue between you as a citizen and the people that are going to be in the position of power and making policies, making decisions. And the ramification for that is then if we choose or follow the wrong leaders, if we let them to make bad decisions, and then you close your eyes and open, and then you see that the nations are in war, then you see that the bloodshed is going on, then you see that civil war is happening. Then you look at like the decisions that they're making on behalf of you is leading to the interest rate going up. You look into it and then you see that the value of the currency is diluting due to them having to deciding to print up more fiat money or currency. Then you're going to all of a sudden see that your purchase power is being severely impacted. So, but then you may not be able to track how come, how come we're getting into this situation? Well, we're letting those that happen. Now, this goes back to the distinction responsibility in the being framework, ontological model. Being a primary cause of the matters that life brings to us, regardless of the source. It's like, am I tapping into my autonomy, relatively high level of autonomy? Am I being this active agent in life or a passive victim to the circumstances? Am I being disheartened or disarmed, thinking that, oh, I'm just one person, what kind of impact I can have? No, you can't. Because it's not only you, there are others and others and others. And ultimately, the way that we collectively are seeing it, definitely in a democratic setting, but even in the settings that are not fully democratic, it's the public, it's the majority that are letting these leaders to keep going as they're going. Not single individual, not only one single individual can actually cause that kind of damage. Like they are being led to do such things or make such decisions. So there is a kind of a empowering message, I believe, in this conversation that we are having. That you matter, your decision matter, your how you think matters, how how you perceive leadership matters, how you um, follow or not follow certain um, style of leadership matters. And yeah, so that's basically what's that. Now, so we discussed the qualities in the being framework ontological model or the being framework in general that I as an author thought that a leader should have due to my studies in it. So we have all these videos and all these different discussions in the previous episode that I would really encourage you, our audience, to have a look. I think if we manage to look into those qualities, develop our conceptions around them, then we will definitely choose better leaders. See, don't we want leaders that are responsible? They're empowered. At the same time, meaning that like when they have a healthy relationship with empowerment, they're not going to impose their power over others. Don't we want leaders that are vulnerable or they're in acknowledgement with their vulnerability? Don't we want leaders that are compassionate? So in a democratic settings, we know that the majority rule, but how about the minorities? How about the people that no way they can have the means, the funding, or um, the whatever basically is required for their voices to be heard? So do we want leaders that they just want to please the majority, get the votes, and then keep going and then basically pushing their agenda? Or no, like we got to this stage that we know that majority rules, but there are various different groups of people and individuals that is still it's in our benefit for them not to be oppressed. And that I want to talk a little bit more about. But let me see what you have to say, Enrique, here.
Yeah, well, as you were speaking, I was just thinking about the appeal that leaders have to those that do vote for them, right? So they will appeal either to your shadow side or your light side. Uh, Everybody has something to say about their position and how they feel about what the future holds and how they're going to influence it and all these other things, right? But the fact remains that leaders have to be placed in these positions, but they don't have to stay there if they're not actually doing the work that they should be doing. And a lot of people don't realize the power they have in a singular vote, right? So, like you said earlier, we don't get three votes, we get one vote, and we got to make it count. Now, majority rules in a democratic setting, but these leaders are appealing to something. And typically, like I'll give you an example here in the United States. There was, in my opinion, someone sitting in the president's seat that had little to none leadership qualities that were favor the people, right? And so when you have a setting like that, that person still got elected. And
Mm.
so what do? You have to wait your turn, obviously, or you could choose to say, well, I don't want to be part of this and go somewhere else. But we still have a choice. Leaders that don't exemplify the attributes that we believe, the tenets that we believe leaders should have, we
Yeah,
still have a choice
yeah,
in the matter. So as we are being appealed to, what I
yeah,
want people to understand is that understand what it is you are being appealed to. What part of you is saying yes, yes, yes,
yeah,
because that's important, and
yes,
that's how you do get
yeah.
tyrants and bullies in office because they are appealing to a side that may not be as nice as you
Yeah,
think.
yeah, this is really, really so there was a couple of days ago I've seen this interview with one of the politicians, and this particular leader was standing there, and then the news were there, like the reporters, and one of these reporters asked the question, is it that, oh, what constitutes terrorism to you? Basically a genuine question, like, from a leader, that, okay, so how do we classify what is terrorizing people, what is terrorism? And 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 this leader, instead of like replying back and saying, okay, so this is what we think like terrorism is, and these are like the factors that then we can call an organization a terroristic organization. And instead of that, he evaded the conversation, evaded the question completely, and started attacking the reporter, making the reporter extremely uncomfortable, and saying, "Oh, of course, like, like, don't you follow the laws? And then we have this." I mean, this is very, very interesting. This is very, very interesting. And then I was reading the comments. I was reading the comments, and how many comments was there cheering that particular leader? Say, yeah, wait, this is the kind of leader that we want. Oh, I mean, he only needed to just reiterate what constitutes terrorism. The thing is, partly the reason that they are evading that kind of conversation is like the moment that you open your mouth and then you're going to say, oh, these are the factors, then you're going to see that there are many organizations that they share some pieces and bits and pieces of that, and then you may need to then call them what you don't want to call them. Yeah. So I remember like Donald Trump actually in one of these interviews that he had, and this is not me advocating for anyone. I mean, this is just an example. So Donald Trump was asked by this interviewer, like, "What do you think of Putin, the Russian leader?" And it goes like something like, "Putin actually is a very smart person." And then this reporter got a little bit a little bit agitated. So, "Oh, what do you mean? He's intelligent. He's smart." He goes, "Yeah." And then he said that the reporter says, but he's a murderer. And then Donald Trump says, "Oh, what do you mean? Like, I mean, yes, and there are lots of murderers around. Don't you think that we murder here and there?" So the thing is that the vulnerability that is required and the authenticity to actually acknowledge. Now, like from an ethical perspective, we can discuss, we can assess, like, uh, that's a separate conversation. Yeah. So everyone should be present, I think, to the fact that uh, in general in politics, benevolence is not necessarily one of the key values amongst the ones that are making these decisions, but that's a separate conversation to have. This authenticity and vulnerability to actually own um, the fact that it's not only the enemy, the opposite party, the other nation we are involved with, they are the bad guys, and we are totally good. I mean, this is exactly where these conflicts and everything just keep going. And uh, hence, uh, w- some of the key qualities amongst the 31 qualities that I talk about when it comes to leadership is vulnerability, or that openness, epistemic humility, to actually acknowledge and to, and that's the beginning of the thing. Authenticity, are we um, are we committed to develop congruent, authentic, credible opinions and views or conceptions of various different parts of reality, the events as they are unfolding? Am I interested in that? Am I committed to have credible views? And then the other qualities that we talk about in the framework. Yeah. So um, basically, that's all on my end that I took note. And I thought that it's going to be useful. Like, to recap, all we're saying is you as an individual, you have an ideal of leadership, you have some fantasy of leadership. In that fantasy, you lack something, even in an abstract view. So you lack something. So, based on that perception of leadership, then you're going to go and elect, you're going to choose, you're going to find a leader to follow, whether it's an opinion maker, as a thinker, as a guru, as a political leader, or intellectuals, or basically whoever you are following. You're going to choose the person as a leader based on your fantasy, your perception, and there's a lot of illusion there. um, and and therefore those qualities that are lacking in your perception, they're going to manifest themselves in reality in that person being, so that person is truly your representative. You may intellectually not agree with that, but if a person is going on a position of power, position of leadership, we are letting that to happen. That's that's from a collective perception or the illusion that we have of leadership, and that's going to then bite us. So that's basically what I've been trying to say. The way that we make sense of leadership is going to manifest itself out there, and it's going to impact our life severely. So it's better to polish our understanding of leadership as much as we can. Yeah, Enrique.
Yeah, no, that's completely right. And there are two sides of every coin, right? And so we have to see both, the ones that are coming at us and the ones that we are influencing by whether something that we have or we don't. But we really do need to see at both sides so that we can get the whole picture.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome. So I think we're at the end of this episode. Thank you, Enrique, and thank you everyone for being with us.